Hi there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Automotive Talent Show podcast, the podcast where we get to know and gain insights from leaders within the automotive industry. I'm very excited for this week. Anyone that knows me knows that I really love a good piece of technology, and our guest this week is definitely someone that can definitely scratch that itch for me, and I think definitely would be the type of person that would be able to get a great insight into the future of the automotive industry in general. My guest this week has a broad base of experience, including sales, product and marketing leadership. He's currently applying his skills and experience working for a very progressive organisation with strong ties to automotive. Welcome to the podcast, Charles Lin. How are you, my friend?
Great. Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm going well. Currently coming to you from Korea in Seoul. I've just arrived here a couple of weeks ago and just settling in. I moved here just recently, so yeah.
Yeah, as we said before, hitting the record button, you've had, your environments have been very varied over the last few weeks, where a lot of Australia obviously are keeping fairly close to home. But yeah, you've obviously got got strong ties to the automotive industry. So I suppose give us a bit of an insight into the Charles Lin story. How did that start? Because it's a very interesting background that not many people would have a good insight into.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a Brisbane boy. Been there, essentially had been there all my life until I finished university. Once I finished that, I moved down to Melbourne, just looking for opportunities, knowing that most of the automotive OEMs that I was interested in had representation in the Melbourne area. So this was 2008, so more than 10 years ago. I bought a one-way ticket down to Melbourne and just had to find an opportunity somehow, somewhere. So I first ended up with a digital media agency. So I was there for roughly 2 years. Fortunately for me, I was exposed to the automotive business during that time. So working on the Honda Australia media accounts, on the digital media side specifically, for display ads, for retargeting ads, SEO, SEM reporting campaigns on car sales, Wheels Car Year campaigns on all the other relevant online publishers.
Yes.
So that was a great insight, great opportunity. From there, had an opportunity to move on to an automotive OEM, being BMW Group. So joining BMW Group as a junior product planner, product coordinator in 2010. That was a great opportunity for me, a great introduction into the world of automotive, especially from the product management, product planning side. It was something that I was very familiar with at the time, but not knowing the business side of it. So I guess getting the opportunity to understand how product planning works, how the product orders and specification works, and the process between the regional offices and how it connects to the global central ordering system with a brand like BMW. So it was a great opportunity to learn and to understand, the overall process of how to bring cars to market. So that was an amicable time for me.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts isn't it? Like, it's one of those. I suppose there's a level of naivety for people that you go, hey, I love cars, I want to get into the industry, and you dip your toe into the water, and all of a sudden you realise how deep the pool is, isn't it? There's a lot of moving parts in our world. Between obviously there's moving parts in the retail space. There's also a lot of different facets and elements to make up the OEM side as well. No matter which particular department you call home.
Yeah, for sure. For me, going to BMW or joining the BMW Group was once an opportunity lifetime. I'd been a fan of the brand many years prior to that. And so, when the opportunity came up, I just jumped at it. In hindsight, to be honest, whether it was something that was more on the technical side or, IT side or whatever it may be, I would have taken it anyway. It just so happened that it was in an area that was of a strong interest of mine. And, I just happened to be very, very good at it at the time. So I thought I was anyway.
Yeah, well, you're obviously you've been you're only well, I suppose in the retail space they say you're only as good as your last month, don't they? But I think tenure is one of those things that I suppose is is the real world evidence on how much you've been able to give and how much value you've been able to add. So, tenure within the automotive industry, that counts for a hell of a lot. And obviously you've been in the automotive industry basically since the uni days.
Yeah, like it's something that I decided to focus on. It was a dream, a passion of mine to end up in automotive. And that passion and excitement still ignites within me. And so, like I intend to remain in automotive for as long as possible across the APAC region. So as I mentioned before, I'm currently in Seoul, South Korea. But prior to being here, like I was in Singapore for roughly 6 years. Again, also with the BMW Group, and most recently, in the past 2.5 years or so, with the organization that you had mentioned earlier. We work on digital solutions for automotive clients.
Yeah. And that organisation, I think we're pretty safe to say, it's a business that's called AppVantage, which I think maybe it's one of those organisations that you might not have heard the corporate name of the business, but you've probably seen things that the business has been a part of, hasn't it? That would be a fair way of summarising it.
Yeah, sure. That's definitely a good way to put it. So the business itself, we work very closely with automotive OEMs and their capital or their finance arms. So being stationed in Singapore, we have a very close working relationship with the Daimler regional office. So a lot of the solutions that you see across APAC, even to places like Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Korea, a lot of those solutions back from early 2010s was developed in conjunction with our team. So I've only been with business, like I said, for roughly 2 years, but we've been around for close to 10 years now.
Yes.
And so there are a lot of the solutions out there that, essentially during the infancy stages was, one of our initial ideas in collaboration with the OEMs themselves.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
right. So, a lot of the solutions are white labeled solutions, so we don't necessarily put our name to it. And that's the beauty of it, I think, because
Yes.
any OEM or any dealership group is able to, attach their branding onto it to make it more personalized and customized deal in a way, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely, isn't it? It's like a lot of things in the world. Like technology obviously moves so quickly that if a particular business said, okay, we want this facility built or whatever, you only have the learnings that you take from doing that, in a very sort of narrow snapshot on things. But when you've got a business like yours that obviously takes the learnings from everything that they've built over the years, that it makes the end product more stable, more diverse, more progressive, because the resources in many ways have been shared and pooled, haven't they? So,
Yeah, for sure. So we're still, progressively learning as well. It's not something that we rest our laurels on.
yeah,
We consistently get feedback from clients. We review what's the latest innovations in market. And we consult other businesses. We share ideas. We brainstorm as well. And so it's something that we continuing to pursue and to improve. Not saying that it's the best solution out there in market. Of course, there's plenty other alternative solutions as well. But I think the critical thing is, finding the right team that works best with specific requirements of the business,
yes,
but also the ability to be agile and to turn around solutions relatively quickly, and to make sure that solution that is developed or whatever it may be is used to its maximum potential. And so that's how we work. We're essentially a bespoke solutions company, enterprise software solutions. We don't necessarily have off-the-shelf products as yet. Having said that, though, we are in the pipeline. We have some products in pipeline which are going to be off the shelf, perhaps
yeah,
more so relevant for the Southeast Asian market in relation to digital financing. But in relation to other solutions, we tend to sit down with the clients themselves to work out what their requirements are, and we go through the process together and understand each other, and then formulate a solution that will best meet requirements. After talking to or after interviewing relevant stakeholders within the business to have their input, so that every piece of the puzzle as part of the solution is going to be adding value to their existing process. Because if it doesn't
yeah,
add value, if it doesn't improve anything, then there's no point in in rolling out a specific service or solution that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously the business has a couple of different facets to it. Like it doesn't just sort of focus on the finance side.
Yeah.
It obviously has it has the as we were looking at before, the digital showroom. So a lot of as it's all white labeled, so a lot of obviously you wouldn't know that AppVantage was the major backbone of it, but it's got a digital showroom. Obviously, it's got the finance side. There's a service and after sales side to it as now. There's even like a bit of a car hire, loan car type sort of service as well. So there's a lot more diversity than just the finance side, isn't it?
Yeah, obviously finance is one of our key strengths. We've been involved with the financial services side of the automotive business since inception. But having said that, though, like you said, we cover sales and marketing, after sales, as well as the future mobility topic. So when it comes to sales and marketing, we've developed simple digital showrooms or configurators, as you may call it, for local automotive dealership groups within Southeast Asia region. So it's designed essentially as just an inventory configurator, knowing the specific processes of how the cars arrive in Singapore specifically. There's not many custom orders. Everything is built on inventory. But we still want to develop or offer an exciting experience for the customer. With simple color selections, interior trims, and upholstery. So by utilizing the digital platform, the customer can see the car virtually and reserve specific stock according to the requirements, so they can view the full list of inventory if they want to. So yeah, it's just making the most of the situation that we have and the solution that we can provide, with the solution that we can provide, sorry. And yeah, like it's something that, suits the tier 2, tier 3 markets particularly well. When it comes to global solutions out of the head office, whether it be in Tokyo or, Stuttgart or Munich, a lot of these solutions don't see the day of light in, places like Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia.
Yeah.
So they're very low on the pipeline for rollout, and so this is where we step in and we provide support pretty well.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? You're obviously, as you said before, you're a Brisbane boy, born and bred. Your automotive experience started obviously in Australia and overlooking this part of the world from a obviously starting in marketing and then moving on to other roles within the OEM sort of space. But I suppose leaving Australia and heading to Singapore, you've obviously now have the exposure to more markets than just the Australian, New Zealand market. So, what do you think the key differences are between, I suppose, where you were, where you grew up versus to where you are now? Like how progressive is the market outside of our little bubble here on the island in the middle of the water somewhere?
So Australia's a very mature market, of course. When it comes to internal systems or integration with head office systems. For markets, for myself actually, so I was responsible for markets like Philippines, Vietnam, New Caledonia, Tahiti, Sri Lanka, for BMW Mini.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these markets, it's still back to the basics, fundamentals of retailing. So during my time there was none of this discussion in relation to digital showrooms or configurators. In fact, a lot of the German solutions, as I mentioned before, they weren't even available for the smaller markets. It was essentially just available for Vietnam and Singapore, of the markets under my jurisdiction. So it's a different world, I think. Even though it is automotive, the sales process is still very traditional, very very back to basics. Talking to some of my colleagues in Thailand, they're saying that a lot of the digital solutions may not even pick up there because, the Thai culture, they appreciate, being served by 3 or 4 people during a sales process. To them, it's, hospitality.
Yes.
The labor there is very cheap, so to replace this, this current experience they have, it's not necessarily a priority for them.
Yes.
Um, but for a market like Australia, I feel like we're on the cusp of change towards a fully digital experience, whether it be buying a car online or making a service appointment, or booking a rental car. A lot of those, of course, rental car bookings are very digitalized already.
Yes.
Like it's more so the car purchase process, the financing process, and the after sales process, especially when you have brands like Volkswagen coming out with over the air updates, for your car in future, right?
Yes.
So you'll be spending less time in the service workshop, just there for consumables. But if it's technical related stuff, a lot of it is over the air. So I guess from the dealership's perspective and the business perspective is how do you ensure that you can maintain the relationship that you had in the past with your customers moving forward, and how do you adapt to their changing requirements and changing needs? Because
Yeah,
they'll be
absolutely.
spending less time in your showrooms for sure, which evidence and data already does suggest.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the day customers now really the as we've said in previous episodes, before for the last 30, 40 years, the industry has told a customer how they want them to buy a car in many ways, but these days the customer is actually demanding that of the industry. This is how we want to interact with you. It's a and it's our duty to listen to that, isn't it? And
I know it's a bit of a cliche, but this whole entire digitalization thing, like it's not a matter of if, but when. Yeah, like
yeah, absolutely.
everyone says that, and I truly believe in that as well. You know, it's a process that you and I both agree on that definitely requires a bit of attention, and a bit of a thought gone into it to make it more relevant for customers, for businesses, for all internal stakeholders. And that's one reason why I enjoy the role that I'm in at the moment, representing a business like AppVantage, because it provides a platform to enable the change that I wish to see within automotive. And I touched on this point earlier as well, weeks ago when we first spoke. Automotive has been great to me, and I want to see the industry out. I want to, the longevity of the industry is still relevant. I think the dealership model is still relevant. I'm sure there's a lot of different ideas and different visions in place on how that will be like in the next 10, 15, 30 years, whatever it may be. But yeah, my job, if I can, is just to try and inspire and cite ideas for whoever out there. We're happy to discuss solutions, discuss ideas. I'm not in it for personal gain. It's really about improving the process for everyone around me within automotive, so that the experience for myself in future, for my friends and family, for my acquaintances, is going to be better for all, and so that the industry remains relevant for everyone for years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we both share that value. We just come at it from different directions. We both want the industry to be the best version of itself. It's a
Sure.
it's a as far as a PR exercise, we probably haven't been our best PR agents in the past. It's where the reality is, it's such a great business. It's such a great industry to be a part of. It's dynamic. It's progressive. I've often said it would be a great reality TV show if someone had the guts to produce it. The industry, because I think it is. The reason we're all in it and we stay in it is because it encapsulates you in a way, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
sure.
You fall in love with it. You could probably call it Stockholm syndrome. It holds you captive and you fall in love with it. It is a
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think there's a lot of things in this life, in this world. The evolution, through the information age, is really driving that with our customers. Like if you look at, obviously you speak at it from a from an automotive sense, and how customers want to interact with the industry. From my perspective, being someone that works in the people side of it, attracting if you look at the way we used to advertise for jobs, for example, back in the day, 30 years ago, you would put an ad you would put an ad in the newspaper on a Wednesday or a Saturday and say, "Hey, help wanted," where now we push our opportunities onto digital job boards, which you could argue that sort of penetration and success rate is dwindling, to now the social media channels and building a brand and building a reputation, and the reality is, just like our customers, people joining your business want to interact with you how they want to interact with you, not how you would, not trying to channel them through a particular funnel. It's you've got to be available on everything, really, don't you?
Yeah, like you raise a good point there. So you don't want to remove the traditional processes, and you still value your sales teams in a way, and they're still going to be relevant for years to come. So I think it's highly important to develop like an overall omni-channel approach and an omni-channel experience, whereby you provide the solutions and the opportunity to allow customers to begin the purchase process, either online or offline, throughout any stage of the entire purchase journey. An omni-channel experience, is enable the customer to switch between online and offline throughout every stage of the purchase process. And so it's important for businesses to design that, to ensure the transition between or into the future is as smooth as possible. Like I said before, like it's not about if but when, and we just want to ensure the transition is handled properly. And automotive, in a way, is falling behind. Every other industry, it makes it very easy. They make it very easy for customers to interact and engage with them. And I'm just hoping for the same for automotive.
Yeah, it's as you say, the challenge is the seamless part, isn't it? Like the technology side of it actually isn't the challenge really, because we can, like just say for example, some of the things that you guys work on. You've got things like number plate recognition. So as soon as a customer drives into a service department, you can build software to say Mr. Smith just turned up with his Toyota Camry and he's here for his 15,000 service, and he likes a latte with hot with 2 sugars. That stuff is all great, but it's having that seamlessly interact with the organic matter that walk around on the inside is the challenge, isn't it? More than anything else.
So yeah, you've nailed it right on the head there. So that's one of the solutions that we have, that we can offer through one of our partners based in Korea. And so a lot of, the future in dealership experiences, is or can be developed using the license plate recognition technology. Because if your staff are, alerted to the impending arrival of a specific customer, whether it be an appointment or just, a walk-in customer, and exactly who that customer is, you can better design an experience for them to wow them every single opportunity that you get. Yeah. And so this is the power of what, great hardware can provide for your business. And with the data that you collect, over time, the data is extremely powerful as well for future, potential campaigns that you may wish to run, or future ideas that you wish to roll out. Data is king. And by having your own set of data, using your own internal systems and internal hardware, that goes a long way towards ensuring the future survival of an automotive business, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I think back in the day of standing in a dealership and predicting a customer's mood by how their car swings into the car park. Especially in the service side. You could. I think once you have a little bit of experience or maybe trauma under your belt, you could actually pick a customer's attitude by how they drove into your business.
Yeah, and there'll be aim for that as well, maybe. Depending on how hard they drive the car in or what speed they drive at.
Yeah. You go. Well, they don't look happy. I'll plug in their registration number just to see what we've done to them recently, type thing. Exactly. That'll be all automated. But yeah, I think as a lot of industries, you look at the technology that are getting built into businesses these days. They're there to make the they're there to make the organic matter or the human, I suppose, element in theory life easier, isn't it? Like it will never 100% replace a person, but
No.
it will make that person more efficient, and it will make the customer's experience more efficient. So but the days of the robots taking over 100%, I wouldn't suggest it would necessarily happen in either of our lifetimes.
Yeah, I don't think that's realistic as well. And as you mentioned, I think the solutions are there designed to help complement existing services and products. It's not there to replace, but to make it easier for everyone involved, to make it seamless. Um, if you can provide a more efficient experience for your customer, then you can better allocate your time towards other things that are more meaningful within a business, whatever it may be. Yeah.
Yeah.
And from a management perspective, you can reallocate resources to where it's needed most. So someone who works as a salesperson can come in and provide support as a service advisor potentially. Because
Yeah.
his requirements on the sales side would have changed. Yeah, just thought.
I would agree with you. I can foresee, and you look at what we're talking about here. You can foresee that in a world where things are changing fairly rapidly, and the OEM side is changing rapidly for looking at things like agency models and what have you.
Right.
You could nearly foresee that the days of a salesperson being a finance person, being a service advisor, all amalgamated into one role, and call it a relationship management or brand specialist, or either way, you can see that point of contact being something that's viable, I think, in our lifetime.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely something that I envision as well. And like you said, the agency model, like there's going to be a restructure in terms of dealership staff and dealership titles, I feel. And so whatever that looks like, I don't have a crystal ball. Like I'm sure all
Yeah.
the relevant brands out there are planning for it. I'm excited to see what it will be like specifically in Australia, with the recent announcements of some of the OEMs switching to that model by 2021, 2022. So yeah, the future does look bright from that perspective. But of course, the existing sales staff, the existing dealership staff, they still have a pretty vital role to play, and how that role pans out will depend on how they can better reallocate resources and better manage the existing processes, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the way I think about it is, it's the technology will come in to replace the things that we actually generally are hit and miss on.
Yeah,
But it will free us up to do the things that only that we can do, and that's obviously relationship manage
yeah,
with that customer. So you might have an automated marketing program or a service drop off or anything like that, but when people still generally want to do business with people, and
yeah,
that definitely is different. That changes, I think, worldwide. If you're looking at the worldwide model, that changes culturally, as you say. What's right for one business for a brand in one country might not work 100%, but in another one. But the learnings you take out of it, I think, complement each other.
yeah. Like you said, it is still a very people business. It's just that there's probably going to be less interaction with people, relevant people within the business, and a lot more self-service, I guess. A good example of that, it's not necessarily new, but digital financing. Like applying for a car loan these days, it's a lot of manual paperwork, a lot of collecting your own information, like submitting your pay slips, your notice of assessment, whatever it may be, your business activity statements, if it's a business purchase, I guess. And so we want to try and eliminate that, and make it easier for both the customer as well as dealer and the financier, so that what used to take 2 or 3 hours of the day to compile and to collect and to share with the relevant people, part of the process, is now like a 5-10 minute job. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in some ways in our part of the world, we're probably guilty of over regulating in some instances, aren't we, in Australia? Like I think even look at, you compare the Australian and New Zealand market, the regulations that are in both are even though we're not that far apart and we're in the trenches together at Gallipoli, the businesses are completely, the industries in many ways are piles apart in some areas, like finance and grey imports and all of that, all of those sort of things. So there's unique challenges in each market.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the key part of that is, to be very reactive to the changes that do come, like whether it be LCT changes or, like you said, the grey imports. I just read an article the other day about how there's an opportunity for grey imports of used EVs into Australia, just how they've seen an influx of that in New Zealand. And so that will bring the price points of EV affordability down significantly. If the cars are, 3 to 5 years old, for example. And so, that might encourage greater uptake of this technology amongst the automotive market in Australia specifically.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, used EVs in New Zealand. That's something that, of course, it's going to happen, isn't it? Like it happens for everything else. Why not ship a Tesla over there? Because it's
Yeah, like there's no emissions regulations.
yeah,
There's no internal combustion engine, right? So
yeah,
it makes it a lot easier, I guess, to bring in those vehicles. And Australia is the potential next market for that.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's been a lot of, actually. We're talking. We're talking in the it's middle July 2020. So this week, actually, from a product launch, it's actually been a bit of a new product week this week. I don't know if you've been keeping an eye. I know you well enough to know that you would be keeping an eye on it, but
I try to.
yeah. Like I think there's some cars that I'm very excited about to see. Like the obviously BMW released the iX3 this week, which
Yep.
I think will be it will be a game changer for them. I think in many ways. You look at what Toyota's been able to do with a hybrid RAV4, for example, and that's popularity. That's just going to be next level. I think for an already successful platform, it's the future and it's here today, isn't it?
Yeah, the iX3 is a great car. I love the X3 personally. It's a perfect for a young family. Great driving position, great good space. Electrification is something that is going to become mainstream as well. Of course, with the adoption that you've seen of the Tesla brand globally. An article came out about how taxation in Germany makes it so attractive to buy some of the cheapest EVs on market that a leasing for like a Renault Zoe is cheaper than a mobile phone plan over 2 years.
Are you joking?
Yeah. So, and because of that, they've had an influx of inquiries over the past week or so, and they're fulfilling a lot of the orders. So can you imagine a Renault EV cheaper than a typical mobile phone plan because of the government incentives? Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
incredible. So
yeah,
these are some of the reactive measures, that, automotive brands have to be prepared for. So in this particular example, if you had like a digital financing system that is customer self-service available online on your websites or whatever it may be, and you do have these incentives come in overnight without much warning, you're able to, supply the market at the right place at the right time. If a car is going to cost you like the same price as a mobile phone, you're going to buy it online.
absolutely.
A lot of people say they refuse to buy a car online because you need to test drive it, you need to see it in person. But I'm sure the majority of people, if you told them you can get a brand new car for the price of a mobile phone, they'll sign up straight away without test driving, without looking at the car. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you raise a good point. You look at a well, Apple were the masters of it. They're probably the forefront people. They I think that generally is early September. They will have their iPhone launch, their big event, and they will say, I know we've been saying this is the greatest, but now this is the greatest.
yeah,
And come late September on a Friday morning, I might have been one of them on a couple of those occasions. People would line up because they've created the demand, then they've met the supply, and and there was so much trust within the brand itself that you didn't need to touch it and feel it. You
correct.
Yeah, you just said Apple said it's great. I've seen it. They've showed me it's great. Look at what it can do. That's the one I want now. So
Yep. And as long as you provide the platform, the opportunity for customers to engage and purchase that product at the time relevant to them, then yeah, your business is going to thrive. And that's the same mindset I believe that can apply very well in automotive. So yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's a different world, isn't it? I think they're coming back to that EV thing. Some
yeah,
like you look at, as you said, that example that you used. I think in progressive governments, I think are really incentivizing OEMs to drive the EV business because the customer demand is there because
mm,
the governments of the land are legitimately looking at things like emissions and everything, obviously making the world a better place. Where
mm.
I think in other parts of the world they're actually taxing EVs heavier than combustion for whatever reason, which just doesn't make sense to me. You look at, like, in the Australian market, for me, and maybe I've got a skewed viewpoint on this, but yeah,
Mm.
like, why it would make sense to say, it would make sense for the government to say, all these commercial vehicles, let's try and make as many of these commercial vehicles as efficient as possible, and we'll give you tax breaks for that. Where actually in Australia we're probably taxing them heavier for that. There's no incentive to buy an EV in Australia, to my knowledge, at this point.
Yeah, I don't believe there is as well, and I think that's got to drastically change for the adoption rate to increase. So you'll see, in markets where EVs have done well, are markets where there are, very great incentives from the government. Places like Hong Kong, places like Norway. It's only when incentives are in place that EVs will work, and without that, then there's no business case, I guess, to roll these types of cars out there. The infrastructure required is a heavy investment from both the dealer side as well as local governments and authorities. So it's not something that can be done easily, but it's something that definitely needs to happen, I feel. And yeah, Tesla's a great example of how they've been able to prove that it does work in a lot of different markets around the world. But the
Yeah,
adoption can be better.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if the Tesla example is anything to go by, it just goes to show a great marketer
Mm.
coupled with great technology, coupled with a great experience
Mm.
equals success.
Another good example of an EV test bed is on the island of Jeju in Korea. So Jeju is essentially the equivalent of Hawaii for Americans. So Jeju is a small holiday destination. People go there for honeymoons and family holidays. It's 45 minutes from the mainland. And so on that little island, the government itself over there has set up charging infrastructure pretty much dotted all over the place. Rental cars, rental EVs are extremely cheap over there. So on my last visit, I actually rented a Corona EV, and it's great. Didn't have to spend
Yeah,
a cent on petrol.
yeah,
Every accommodation that we booked had designated facilities free charging that was free. And yeah, I can really see this picking up in a lot of different places. You hear and you read about a lot of like people not satisfied about EVs. There's no more grunt of the engine sound. You don't get the purest experience. But truth be told, like I love my M3s, I love my M5s, but I also appreciate what the EV can bring.
yeah,
Like if
absolutely.
it's a matter of getting you from point A to B. The driving experience is pretty damn good as well. And at the end of the day, it costs me nothing to operate it. Yeah. Or in this case, because the charging was free. But
Yeah,
charging can be relatively cheap in a lot of different markets around the world.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's the future is already here, really, isn't it? Like with obviously with coming back to the iX3, BMW don't put their badge on something unless it feels and drives like a BMW. Um,
Correct. Correct.
so, it no doubt will be a winner. And actually, it's one of those things I think you can probably put into the Apple category. I think they will be having orders for those vehicles long before the first one turns up off the boat in Australia. I think in other markets as well.
Yeah, I'm sure the first boatload would be sold out before it even arrives, just like how the EQC was, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah, yeah, absolutely. What do you And I suppose this question is been kind of covered off already by our conversation. But what do you think? What do you think the biggest challenge for the industry is right now at this particular time? Like, obviously COVID's something that we haven't spoken about, and that's affected markets differently everywhere, hasn't it? But even pushing COVID aside, like, do you feel the biggest challenge? Well, I'll throw it over to you. What do you think the biggest challenge for the industry is at this particular point in time?
I guess nobody saw the potential impact and disruptions that this COVID pandemic will bring. Um, you see a lot of businesses being closed around the world. Dealerships in Singapore, for example, were closed for approximately 3 months.
Yeah,
And when you don't have throughput for 3 months, that puts a strain on the overall, business finances. So I think that's the biggest challenge to find out how you can maintain business continuity in times when these disruptions do come, especially when you know or when you don't know how long these disruptions will last for. Um, this type of thing is likely to come again during our lifetime, whether it be 10 years, 20 years. And so I think the critical thing is to make sure that you have solutions in place to better handle and better manage, better prepare for the next potential disruption. Touch wood, it doesn't, it's not going to be that big of an impact. But, this is the trend that we're seeing as well. Customers are more willing to stay home. They're more likely to be online. And, studies do suggest that people browsing online have a higher propensity to purchase and transact. And there was a Frost and Sullivan report that was conducted middle of last year in relation to digital, purchasing and buying cars online. And they estimated that for 2019, there was going to be 825,000 cars being sold online, whether, being bought online, being financed online, or part payment made online. And this figure is expected to reach 6 million by 2025,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
and so this pandemic, in a way, might have accelerated that. So we might hit that 6 million figure a lot earlier than 2025. So yeah, it's just, it goes to show what's happening around us. All these automotive OEMs and research companies and all these different brands, they all can't be collectively wrong. So I think these are the strong indicators for, your local businesses in Australia as to, what type of investments you should be making to ensure the future, viability of your business.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've been an industry that has really dragged the change with as far as the progressive nature of our business in a way. Like the cars are progressive, but
Mm.
the way we change has been probably a little bit on the slow side. It's a little bit like driving with the handbrake on. It's been held back a little bit, but the lesson I think we've all learned from COVID is that if we want to, we can change really quickly. And there's a yield that can be gained from that change. Like even if it's something as simple as having a portion of your team working from a home environment versus clogging up the car park every day, to how customers want to interact with us. There's a lot of lessons that are going to stick around a lot longer than hopefully the virus does.
Yeah, and great point that you mentioned as well, like the lessons learned, not just from a business side, but also from the customer side as well. I think the social distancing lesson is probably something that will last for the next 2 to 3 years or so. That's going to be heavily ingrained into people's minds, I guess. And with social distancing, it just probably means there'll be even less people within your showrooms, right? So how do you manage that experience for them? How do you offer them, your products and services moving forward? So if
Yeah,
it's like if they still want to buy a car and they still want to engage with you, but they don't necessarily want to be in your showroom, then how do you overcome that problem?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's there's gone are the days of 100% of the people coming into your, well, I think over 90% of people don't interact with you physically face to face as their first interaction these days anyway. So, but I think gone are the days of everyone picking a vehicle up underneath the car cover and the
Yeah.
ribbon. Like there'll be pick up drop offs. There'll be mutual meeting points. I had a gentleman I spoke to last in Petrus from the Tynan Motor Group. They've even got agreed pick up and drop off points for customers. They can leave their car at a certain point. They'll pick it up from there, take it for a service, drop it off. I think that's going to be adapting to those sort of things is going to be something that obviously I think we need to keep investing more in that side space rather than try to push people back into the way we've always done it.
Yeah, I think you've nailed it right on the head there. And I might also go back to the LPR technology as well and how that relates to social distancing. So,
Yeah.
if you have a lot of these solutions and hardware in place, like you said, imagine your customer arriving, Mr. Smith driving a Toyota Camry. You know exactly, who's coming at what time. You no longer have to have your typical, vehicle valet or concierge to be facing the customer on his arrival. You can use parking guidance systems to direct the customer to a specific parking lot within your service center or your showroom. You can have the customer, approach a specific counter or specific desk because they've been notified on their mobile phone that, hey, look, we acknowledge your arrival. Please go to counter 5 on level 2 of the service center, and our service advisor will be happy to serve you there. So, you eliminate a lot of the people-to-people contact, the unnecessary people-to-people contact.
Yes.
But still able to retain the experience and still able to retain the personalization that you require to keep the customer happy.
Yeah. What would the I suppose if you had the benefit of a time machine, Charles?
Yeah.
If you could go back to when you were 20, what would you, besides obviously investing in Apple and Google and all the good shares that you could buy and the winning lotto numbers and all of that, what would you tell yourself? What would you tell the 20-year-old version of Charles?
Geez, that's a good question. I just finished university when I was 20. Yeah.
Yeah.
What would I have told myself at that time? To be fair, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted. I just knew that automotive was a passion of mine. I somehow, some way had to find a way into it. So what I would have told myself was to be a little bit more hungry, be a little bit more aggressive, and show that you want. How should I word this? If you really want something bad enough, you'll do anything to try and get it. Yeah. And I just wish I had the right mentors at the time. Like I've had great mentors since then, but I just wish at that specific point in time I had the right mentors to help guide me through how to obtain the role that I yearn for within automotive, how to grow within automotive, and how to progress further. Having said that, I'm not disappointed. I'm not I'm still happy about my career path so far. I've been given a lot of different opportunities, given the opportunity to work overseas, which was something that I never envisioned when I was younger. So, yeah, it's a difficult question, Cameron. I'm not really sure how to answer it.
I think it is a bit of a different one, but I think for me, you're someone that in hearing your story and knowing your story, you're someone that is always, I think, by comparison to potentially other people out there, you've always grabbed the opportunity and I think you're probably your own worst critic in a way from that perspective. Yeah. But if you said to the 20-year-old Charles and said, hey, in 2020 you'll be happily married, a dad, been experienced working with some great people, living overseas for 6 years and getting such a diverse portfolio of experience, you probably would go, okay, yep, I'll sign up for that.
Yeah, I'll take. Sure, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you're you're someone, as I said at the start of this bit, you for me, I think it's in your nature to grab things and to challenge it, but run with it, isn't it? And that's why you're good at what you do now.
I think for me, the critical thing is you have to be very adaptable to your
Yeah.
environment and to different opportunities, whatever may come at you, and just take advantage of it. Things come at the right place, the right time. Not everything's going to work out, but when they do, you do see the fruits of your efforts.
Yep. I think it's a life is an exercise and gathering experience and trying to utilize as much of it as we can, isn't it? That's
Correct, correct, correct.
a great analogy.
Yeah, and like a lot of the opportunities has brought me to where I am today. Spending 6 years in Singapore was probably a little bit longer than I initially planned. But there are no regrets. I'm still representing the same brand, the same company out of Singapore, but just home based in Seoul, and I'll be doing that for the remainder of the year until the situation for the pandemic improves around the world. And then, yeah, we'll see what happens next year. Whatever comes my way, it's something that like I said, I have to be very adaptable and very open to. And I know that I can apply my knowledge and understanding and skill set and experience to a lot of different things within automotive. So,
I
yeah,
agree.
definitely looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And if people want to find out more about AppVantage and the services and solutions that you provide, whether you're in the OEM space, obviously, I think they would probably have a pretty good knowledge on how to get a hold of you. But anybody in the retail space that want to investigate, things like the license plate recognition software or anything like that, how do they get in contact with you, Charles?
Yeah, with me, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so I'm pretty much on there every day, 5 times a day. So yeah, LinkedIn's the best channel. Alternatively, you feel free to reach out via our website. We've got a couple of case studies on there. So there might be something that suits your requirements. Like I said, there's nothing in it for me. If it just helps to provide some internal ideas and to provide a vision, then that's all I'd be asking for. And I'd be happy to share a little bit more.
Absolutely. And that website, I'll put a link to the website, but it's AppVantage, as it sounds, .co. That's
Correct.
that's the main website, so people can find out more about the business and what you guys do there.
Yep. And also AppVantage.asia as well. So that they both work. Yeah.
They both work. Good to know. All right, my friend, it's been a pleasure, and I really appreciate your contribution. I think we'll be probably the feedback we'll get from this episode. I think we'll have a lot of people. I think really excited about the future. I think a little bit confused potentially, and also the old canaries will be flying around people's heads like in the cartoons. I think as far as what the direction and the technology that's going to be available. So I think you've brought a lot to the table, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Cameron. I appreciate your time as well.
Thanks, Charles.
Good opportunity.
Thanks,
Cheers.
mate. Bye bye.